Hey guys, Virtus here and welcome back to the Unreal Engine 4 survival horror game series, and in today's video we're going to be continuing on with our flash battery system. So if you haven't watched the previous video where we created the battery and flash system, where you press F to toggle the battery on and toggle the flashlight on and off, and we also have a variable to control, the player's battery. If they've got enough battery to use the flashlight, then they can. If they're all out, then they simply can't turn it off. So that's what we did in the past video, and in today's video, we're going to be showing you how to create a simple little pickup for your battery system. So whenever they walk over this battery object, the player will collect it. And from there, they're actually going to be able to use their flashlight a little bit more. It's quite simple stuff really, so hang on tight, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy it. Also, one other thing that I do want to note is that if you haven't actually seen the Unreal Engine 4 beginner tutorial series, I also advise that you go ahead and check that out, just so you can easily understand and follow along. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to start off by showing you exactly what we did in the last video, and that was whenever I press F, the player's got a little flashlight, and whenever they move around they can see it. Also, in the top left hand corner, you can see we've also got a variable being displayed for the battery, and when it gets down to 0, it turns it off. Also, if it is 0, the player can't turn it back on again. So what we need to do now is actually give the player a way to collect more battery, and we're going to be doing this in the form of a little battery pickup box. So what I've actually done is create some cool little textures for a basic battery box that the player can collect. Once they walk over it, gives them a bit more battery and they can use their flashlight again. Once again, all of the textures are going to be available in the download link in the description. So inside of there, I'm going to have a normal, emissive, and a diffuse map. So let's start off by going over the functionality side of things first. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to create a new blueprint actor, and this actor is essentially going to be the battery and battery pickup, and I'm going to call this battery underscore pickup for now. I'm going to open it up and we're going to have to add in a few components. So the first one I'm going to add is a cube, and this is just going to be the physical representation of the battery. To this we can apply the material and all of that cool stuff. And then the second side of things that we're going to do is I'm going to create a box collision. So using this collision, whenever the player walks into it or begins overlapping it, we can actually fire off a sequence of events, and this sequence of events is just going to be adding to the player battery variable. So one thing I do want to note with the box collision is you want to make sure that it encapsulates the entire physical representation of the box. So you can go ahead and scale it up, but for me, I'm just going to set the scale of the cube, the physical representation, to something that's like 0.5 all around, just so it's a little bit smaller. And also, it looks just about right when we actually go ahead and chuck it in the game. And you can still see the outline of the box collision is just outside now, and it should work perfectly fine for us. So let's go ahead and head over to the event graph so that we can actually start working on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get a reference to the box collision. And from this, I'm going to create a new onComponent begin overlap event. So now what we can use this for is to simply, have an event. So when this actually collides with the player, we can fire off these events. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to get the little execute pin here, and we're going to cast to the third person character. And the reason why we're doing this is because this is the only actor that, we want this event, this sequence of events to apply to. Also, by casting to it, we're going to be able to reference the third person character and any variables that are inside it. And if you remember from the last video, we actually put the player battery variable inside of the third person character. So now that I've done this cast to third person character, I can actually get the player battery. Or we can even set it and we can change it just like that. So let's go ahead and do that. So we've got our cast set up, and let's go ahead and set player battery, and we're going to make sure we hook it up on the execute side of things as well. And what we're going to do here is just do simply integer plus integer, and we're going to get a reference to the player battery. And the way we're going to do this is we're just going to add 25 to itself. So if it's 0, it will jump up to 25, if it's 50, it'll jump up to 75, and so on. So I'm going to just type in get player battery, and we're going to hook it up into the A for this. And by default it's set to 1, go ahead and change this to 25, and if we press compile, it should all work. I'm also going to do a quick print string so we can actually see what the return value of this is to see the new player battery. So I'm going to press compile, press play, and we're going to see what happens when we walk over one. So I haven't actually got any in the scene by the looks of things, so I'm going to make sure I drop a couple of these in here. So I'm going to put one in there, and I'm going to chuck another one in there, and another one, and maybe one more just because I can, and I'm going to press play. Now let's start running over these and let's see what happens. So you can see it's gone up to 75, 100, 125, 150, and you can see it's working. The functionality is there. However, you know, we want it to stop at 100. We don't want it to go above. In addition to that, we also need to destroy the block once it's actually been touched, because we don't want it to be used more than once. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a branch to check whether or not it's now gone over 100. So the way I'm going to do this is integer is greater than. So we're going to check if it's greater than 100 now. So we're going to grab this, and if it's true, we're just going to set this to 100. So we're going to do the same thing over here, and we're going to hook up the target to our third person character because that's where it's stored. And we're going to set the player battery to 100. That is if it is above 100. If it's false, we're not going to do anything else because it's working just fine. And the last thing that I'm going to do then is I'm going to destroy the actor. So I'm just going to add in a destroy actor node. Oh, that's wrong. Destroy actor node. And make sure that you've got this hooked up to the false on the branch here, and 1 to the true as well. And that's going to be after you set it to 100, because you want to make sure all of the code is actually, you know, fired off and it's working before you destroy it. So if I was to press compile now, and if I was to press play, if I jump in and start collecting these, you can see they destroy themselves as soon as we touch them, and you know, it's working just great. So that's pretty much everything for our pickup. There's one last thing which I'm also going to do, which is I'm going to import a couple of textures that I made, and I'm going to apply it to the box. You don't actually need to do this if you don't want to. If you've got your own battery textures and stuff, you know, you can import your own, but I'm just going to quickly go over the process once again of how you can create the material and get it into the object inside of your blueprint. So I'm just going to quickly create a new material using the diffuse, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to hook up all the materials really quickly. So the first one I'm going to add in is my normal. I'm going to press T for texture sample while normal is selected, and I'm going to hook that up into normal. And now there should be a little bit more depth there, and I'm also going to add in the emissive map. You can see I've selected that, and I press T, and we've got it in there now. And I'm also going to use the multiply node to actually make it a little bit brighter, because by default it's not too bright. So I'm going to hook up the multiply to the emissive color just like that, and under A I can just put in a constant, and this constant is just a value, so we're going to be multiplying this texture sample by this value, and I'm going to set this to something like 15. I'm going to press apply, I'm going to save it. It should look really great in a second, and I'm going to go ahead and chuck it into my blueprint now. Just give it a second to finish saving. I've got quite a slow hard drive, so it doesn't save as quick as I'd like, but you can see it's looking quite nice there. So let's open up my blueprints, find my battery pickup, and I'm going to go to the box. Not the box, sorry, the cube, my physical representation. I'm going to go to the viewport, and under materials, I'm going to change this to battery _pickup _diffuse map, and you can see it looks quite nice. If you wanted to, you could even add in your rotating movement and a bunch of other stuff. It's entirely up to you, but this is the functionality. We now have our simple pickups, and pretty much the last step of all of this is to actually get it displayed on the player screen. So, you know, we actually have that little progress bar for our battery. So you can see they look quite great. Whenever we pick them up now, they just disappear. It's working awesome. Just like you guys, thanks for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe, and make sure you check out the next video where we will be creating the progress bar on the screen. So I will see you next time. Goodbye.